I'm here again in Canberra, but on this occasion at the invitation of the Australian Institute for International Affairs to talk about Pacific security in the age of superpower rivalry. And so that was the discussion we had yesterday. And the conference was about seeing what the current security threats facing the region. Also, but of course, climate change is very much a part of that. The perceived challenge that China poses for the region is also a part of that. And so that has been the focus of the discussions we've had yesterday, which in a sense are very timely given what's just happened recently in Tuvalu and the Pacific Islands Forum, that meeting that took place, and the clear focus that the Pacific Island countries, the leaders, that climate change is an existential threat, and the pressure that was being put on your government to try and provide the kind of leadership that is necessary to take this region forward. And so, in a sense, we talked about that. And well, obviously, over the last few days, there's been media reports coming forward, some of the comments by the leaders following the Tuvalu Pacific Islands Forum meeting. And really, the question is, what does Australia, as a government and as a people, where do they fit in all of this, given the climate change challenge as a security issue for the most critical security issue for the Pacific Island countries, and the looming threat posed by the Chinese presence in the region. Let me maybe ask you to ask me a few questions if there is anything you want to follow up on this.
Could I get your response to the Deputy Prime Minister's comments that Pacific nations will be okay, that Australia provides them aid, and that many of the people from their country do seasonal work and that they will quite survive?
Yes.
What's your response to that? Are they offensive?
You know, I think the comments that have already been made by the leaders themselves, I think, reflect the kind of mentality, the thinking, the sentiments that we all feel to a comment like that. Personally, I don't see the relevance of the comment to what is the point in discussion, which is about climate change. I don't see how having jobs, picking fruit, would ensure the survival of people whose homes are being flooded out. And I think we need to be a bit more sensitive about what it is that we say, how it's perceived and heard by the people to whom we are directing the comments.
So did you find those comments insensitive? And Michael McCormack has apologised for them this morning. Do you accept that apology?
Yes, indeed. I think you would feel the same as we do. You know, I didn't think there was a call to make that kind of statement. It didn't contribute in any positive way to any kind of relationship that Australia has with its Pacific Island neighbours. And so, quite frankly, I don't see the point of the comment being made in the first place.
The Prime Minister of Tuvalu has suggested that maybe Australia needs to rethink its membership of the Pacific Islands Forum, or that other Pacific Island leaders should look at maybe moving on without Australia at that decision-making table. Do you agree with those sentiments?
You know, I did make the comment as well, and but it's just a reflection of the what I thought were the sentiments being coming forward from the leaders. And I've been in the same position. In 2015, I had the same experience at the forum in Port Moresby in Papua New Guinea, where we had a huge debate. You had a different prime minister at the time, but Australia was still peddling this position that climate change is not as important as because to cut emissions would mean that your economies would suffer, that your standard of living would be lowered, would be affected. But our response has always been the same. It's not about the economics. It's not about politics. It's about the survival of people. We've got to understand that climate change is not a national issue. It's an international issue. It's a global issue which we need to work together. The time that I used to talk about climate change a few years back, it was about the survival of countries like mine. But today, we are hearing that it's about the very existence, the continued existence of humanity. And so the game has changed. Australians must learn to understand that they have as much at stake as we do. The difference is we would go first, but they would follow. And that is the reality of the science coming forward. There's no science to contradict that. And so we must be responsible to respond as necessary.
So Michael McCullough has apologised, but do you think there's any underlying sense of racism in those comments?
Well, I don't know that gentleman, and I cannot read behind his comments. But it's whether racism or what, it's not becoming of somebody in a position of responsibility to make a comment like that. I mean, if you're drunk and in a bar, it would be an appropriate place and time to make the comment. But if you're speaking as a leader, really, it is not appropriate.
Earlier this week, you said that the position of Australia and the fact that it is putting a lot of Pacific Island nations offside could lead to the perception in the Pacific that Australia is seen as the lesser of two evils when it comes to China.
Right.
How do you reconcile that position with the fact that China is one of the world's largest polluters? Isn't it a case of looking at, doesn't that seem hypocritical to be criticising Australia for its carbon emissions, but then potentially saying that you would back China or look to China for further investment and support in the region when they are far and beyond?
Okay, I think you must take the comment in the context of in which it was made. And really, I was reflecting on the comment that was actually made by one of the leaders themselves. And I think it was the Prime Minister of Fiji who said that there's nothing to be worried about with China. In fact, they respect us. They don't. I think in his own words, he felt that he was being insulted. There was condescending relationship with Australia, and which the Chinese do not do. Okay, and but the point really is, we're not talking with China. We're not discussing. We're not at the meeting with China. We're not at the table with China. We're at the table discussing with Australia what their position is. I don't know what Chinese position is. We have not spoken to China. But if China was to come forward and say, we will carry on doing what we're doing, then of course China becomes the worst of the two evils, okay? But right now, the position that Australia has taken is doing it knowing, with all of the science that is available, that this would damage the future of our future generations. I cannot understand how one can know that and go ahead and continue to do what it is that contributes to that happening. I cannot understand it. Anybody with a sense of morality, anybody who believes he is a Christian in any way, must know and believe that it's not right.
At the peak conference, Scott Morrison said that we shouldn't be looking at countries that make carbon emissions through nationality, and that Australia only emits around 1.3% of the world's carbon emissions. Is that a problematic kind of approach to take on this issue in your view?
No, I've always said that, well, let's not talk about numbers. Let's talk about the principle of the issue. And I think Australia is in a very unique place to provide the kind of leadership that is necessary to swing global opinion around. And it has every reason to do that, to provide that leadership, because it's got its neighbors, and I'm sure that I know if I was responsible for these people around me, I would do the right thing for them. I would not just brush them aside and say, you are inconsequential to my considerations, and therefore I refuse to do anything for you. And I think Australia is obligated by the very fact that it has the capacity. It's obligated to do what needs to do in order to provide the leadership and lead the battle. Let's talk to China. Let's stop exporting coal to China, so China would not do what you say it's doing.
You mentioned Christianity there before. Are you appealing to Scott Morrison as a Christian to take up the leadership role?
I'm appealing to everybody as a human being. I think Christianity or whatever religion you have is just a part of being a human being. Okay, and we need to be good moral human beings. And if this is the moral thing to do, why are we not doing it?
He's not doing it at the moment.
I don't think so, because unless we dispute in all sincerity the science that's coming forward. But the science is very clear. I think you just put on your phone and you look up and you see the reports coming out every day telling us that the ice is melting in Greenland, the ice is melting in the Antarctica. Now, is that reason to be concerned? I believe so.
How do you view China's sort of renewed or strategic push into the Pacific? They are offering countries loans to build infrastructure and like. Is there no doubt that development is welcome, but are Pacific Island nations cautious of what they could be signing up to by accepting those sort of deals?
Well, we must understand that we are on Australia and the Pacific Island countries are in different positions, okay? And if there is a gap left open, there is no reason why somebody should not move into that gap to fill it. And so China is not always perceived as a threat by Pacific Island countries. We're not at war with China. We will never be at war with China. So we're not a threat to China, nor do we always perceive them as a threat. And so I think it's about getting that kind of a partnership. And I think we believe we've always stood by Australia. I mean, we've provided the support at the United Nations votes, support of Australia. When Australia wanted to join the United Nations Security Council, it looked and got the support of Pacific Island countries. And on the basis that it would take to the Security Council climate change as a security issue. But if Australia would not do what we'd ask them to do, and somebody else would do it, what would you do? Would you reject the offer of assistance? I think we're just reacting as normal human beings.
Would you have this back to the environment? Would you have any advice for Australians, like priority lists, how they can move forward?
I think the Australian people, I've been here many times, and I truly understand the sentiments that the majority of Australians have in terms of their partnership, the relationship, and also on the climate change issue. I was here before your elections, and the strong sense that I was getting was that climate change has become an item at the top of the agenda. But that was not reflected in the vote. Whatever the reason was for that, I don't know. But there will always be another vote, of course. But if Australians begin to understand and believe that climate change is a danger to them as it really is, then they really need to do something about it.
Or would you have any practical things that, like priority lists for the environment, say?
I've not always focused on the wider environmental issues. We have the issues of the ocean. I'm a passionate ocean advocate, but we need. But all of this is tied up with the climate, the globe being warming. Okay, so we need to attend to that, because the result is so wide-ranging and so global that it's not something that's going to happen overnight. But once it begins to happen, we will never stop it in time. And so, yes, I think we just got to be a lot more careful, respect what it is that's there, rather than regard it as our property to take and abuse. I think it's about respect for nature, respect for people, respect for everything that's been created that's good for us. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
President Tong. Prime Minister Morrison claims that Australia is a member of the Pacific family, yet he turned his back on their greatest concern. Now, Pacific leaders will go to the UN Climate Summit next month in order to seek their survival after Australia's turned its back. World leaders will gather in New York for the Climate Summit. It is a question whether Prime Minister Morrison will attend or whether he'll skip out on this important event. And Prime Minister Morrison carried a lump of coal around Parliament. Now he appears to be putting his fixation with coal ahead of the Pacific survival. Prime Minister Morrison claims that Australia is a member of the Pacific family. The same does not go for China. and the Pacific are turning to Australia to step up on climate change. Are there any further questions? Yep.
I think his stance might be due to lobbyists, I guess, who are supporting both sides.
The Prime Minister has listened to the interests of the coal industry in putting forward a number of different programs to support the coal industry. And it plays a major role in Australia. New research by the Australian Institute shows that Australia is the third largest exporter of fossil fuel emissions, in part because Australia is the largest exporter of coal. But coal is not the solution at home or abroad. Just today, the energy regulator put out a report that shows that the unreliability of coal will put people at risk during summer when there's extreme heat and extreme demand for electricity. Globally, coal is the largest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. Both at home and abroad, Australia needs to move away from coal. The Pacific are being crystal clear. They're asking for no new coal mines. And that should be the approach. Great. Thank you.